Hey, it's Chris. Welcome to the Daily Tech Show. We got all kinds of stuff to talk about today. The usual Apple stuff, some non-Apple stuff. Let's just kick this show off though, talking about, am I worried about getting replaced by AI? So you guys might know I'm working on an AI course, and sometimes when I bring up AI stuff, people are like, hey, Chris, you're talking about being prepared for disruptions, coming down the pipeline for jobs and stuff. And you're also talking about opportunities, but are you ever worried about getting your job replaced by AI? Today's video is brought to you by Brain.fm, science-backed focus music that sounds great, by the way. You can check it out, linked up down below. I ran into this thing called Humva today. It's one of like dozens of things that'll let you create an avatar that supposedly looks very lifelike. You can give it a script, you can feed in your voice using something like 11 Labs kind of technology, so it sounds like you, kind of looks like you. Is it gonna move exactly like you? Not yet, but you can play this forward into the future. And it doesn't take too much imagination to realize like, yeah, at some point it's gonna look super fluid and it may be almost indistinguishable, if not actually distinguishable. In fact, the thing that might be distinguishable is all the human mistakes and stuff, because the AI is gonna just nail things and they may have to tweak in some mistakes to get it to look like it's not so obviously AI. Here's the thing, I'm not particularly super worried about it for a few reasons. And I don't know how this makes you feel about your job, or, because obviously I don't know, there's a million different jobs. Some are more outsourceable to AI than others. But a couple reasons I'm not super worried. I got a bunch of different fires, burning, and some of them, like if my YouTube thing died, I'd have other things that I could like rely on. So, but for this YouTube thing in particular, does it bother me? Like, I gotta tell you, I'm not super worried because I do feel like a couple things. Number one, I do have a bit of recognizability within a certain space, a certain area, talking about certain things. So there's that. Like anybody, I can think of several people online that I've followed for a while. And it's like even if you haven't seen them for a while, you're like, what are they up to? You know what I mean? It's not that you're friends, but you kind of like, you've established some sort of connection. I would say almost more like a pseudo connection. It's not a real connection, but some kind of connection. And that's like a human thing. It's not a bot related thing, right? So there's familiarity, there's branding. I feel like all of that kind of plays in. The other thing that I'll mention though is I plan on leveraging AI, like using AI to the extent that I can, where it makes sense, to put more of myself out there. So, if my audience doesn't like AI generated stuff, I don't want to push AI generated content at them. That's sort of the rule. Like, what do people want? What's working out there? However, if there's an instance where it makes sense to add value and it actually does add value to the audience somehow, I haven't even mapped this out. I'm just kind of like on the fringe, the periphery of this, like observing what's coming down the pipeline and being like, how would I react? Then maybe I would find a way to integrate it if it made sense. If it didn't make sense, then I wouldn't. I talk about this a lot in the course, but undoubtedly there's going to be pushback against AI stuff. And it may be that in the future, and we go through all the AI features in the course. And if you're interested, if you haven't heard about it, you can check it out down below. But we go through a bunch of different possible futures. And what's the pro-human view? How does a human survive and thrive in any given scenario or circumstance? And there's so many to consider. So we kind of hit like the top ones, the most plausible. But I'm going to be honest, I do think that, yeah, a lot of people are going to get roped in and sucked in to the AI thing. But at the end of the day, AI is really like a mirror. It may have really good resolution, that reflection that you're seeing, but it's hollow inside, right? And the thing that it's referencing, that real reality, that's where all the meaning and value is. And so in this case, I'm the thing being reflected by AI, and there could be some instances where that's cool and useful, but at the end of the day, it's all about me and all about you and your humanity. And I think there's some cool ways to lean into your humanity. I've done the deep dive on this where, humans do have some moats left. AI is great at thinking, not so great at emotions. Deep creativity is really a human thing. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of my answer. I'm not super duper worried about it. When it comes to AI, I'm more worried about other things like AI being able to manipulate people at mass scales, because either a corporation or a government or a powerful person, or even just a dude sitting in a basement, who has access to a really powerful model, can deploy that in a way to manipulate. Because as AI becomes more advanced in terms of the thinking, the cognition than people, then it can outmaneuver you without you even noticing it. So that manipulation is is really something that bothers me more than like, is my job going to get replaced? You hear this a lot, like, AI is not going to replace you. Somebody using AI is going to replace you. That's probably largely true for many sectors in the short term. I'll just say this, and I say this in the course: AI is going to lead us where we lead it. And that applies on a society level and I think also on an individual level. So take that for what you will. I just want to take a brief second and let you know about our sponsor today, Brain.fm. I love Brain.fm. I'm literally never without this app on my Mac, on my iPhone, wherever I go, because it just sounds so good. But it's not just about the sound. Brain.fm is science-based, science-backed, and it will help you actually concentrate better. So it actually works as fast as just 5 minutes. And I love the interface, and it just really has quite an effect. Check it out. As you can see, people really love it. And if you check the link down in the description, you get 30 days free. I was doing some research for the show today, and I came across this crazy tweet here, 37 million views just about. And here's the translation. The other day, I noticed that my iPhone was running really slow after the iOS update, and the battery was running out quickly. And this is the cause: enhanced visual search. Implemented in iOS 18, it automatically transfers the location data of photos and folders to Apple. Once you turn it off, the speed instantly increases. This was just within like the last 24 hours that this person posted it, and then it went so viral. So I haven't seen Apple actually respond to this yet. Really, the last thing you want is this amazing new iPhone, right? You just bought it, should be performing at its peak. You don't want that to become sluggish and a battery-hungry beast all of a sudden. My guess is Apple has a fix out for this relatively quickly. However, it does matter. You want your phone to be usable. You don't want it to be acting like it's 4 years old or 5 years old or worse. You have daily productivity things. It's a matter of convenience, really, if things are sluggish or if the battery's just drained. Nothing worse than a fast battery drain. Now, this is just one thing that I'm seizing on because it's caught so many people's attention here. But you gotta remember, I covered this on a clip recently here on the show. Lots of people are frustrated with just how Apple's operating system is working right now on the iPhone. It's not like this bug, there's a lot of bugs, and people have been calling for the next version of iOS to just be a bug fix version. Like, go through and tweak stuff, tighten stuff up, make sure that it's working as it should be and as intended before you add new features. And so this has happened before, and I'm not going to rehash that whole episode. But I do think that the general sentiment right now around iOS 18 is largely one of frustration and some concern among certain iPhone users. I say certain because some people, they just have this attitude where it's like, whatever Apple does, or anything that's got the Apple logo on it, or whatever, they're never going to criticize it. And they're just going to be like, thanks, Apple, like, whatever, thank you. And I don't think that's a particularly helpful attitude. If Apple does something awesome, let's applaud that, of course, right? I'm in the iPhone studio. I got to make a video about this. So many iPads and Macs and iPhones and Apple gear, just like everywhere. I use Apple and I rely on it, and it works so good for me. But I want it to keep doing that. So that means if Apple actually has a flop or a failure of some sort, we got to talk about it, and it needs to be called out. And I think that's sort of what's happening with the sentiment right now with iOS 18. So a lot of people went in and turned this off, and now things seem to be running smoother for them. They were like, thanks for the tip. Here's somebody else who said, thanks, because I thought my phone was broken again, even though I just changed the battery. Somebody else sort of confirming they thought their battery was draining quickly, a little too fast lately, and this was why. Now, whenever there's an issue like this that kind of starts making the rounds or gets in the news or whatever, then you got to take it with a grain of salt, because you're like, how widespread is it? Versus like, did this happen to one person and then other people just sort of glommed on? They didn't really understand the situation or whatever. I don't know if that's really the case here or not. It does seem like a lot of people have experienced this from what I've seen, but let's just throw it out there that maybe it's a possibility for sure. This could be a bit exaggerated, but I want to know what you think. Have you experienced any of these issues? Has your phone felt slower? Has the battery seemed like it's draining a little too quickly or noticeably faster than it maybe used to or should? And I should just note, like, some people are turning this off regardless of the performance issues or non-issues, just because they're worried about privacy. So this feature is turned on by default in iOS 18. You got to go in and turn it off if you need to or want to. Basically, the way this feature works is your device privately matches places in your photos to a global index that Apple maintains on their servers. So let's say that you took a picture of a landmark. Well, Apple can identify it. Kind of like if you take a picture of your dog and Apple can tell you, oh, it's this breed or whatever. It's basically like that. It's weird when you add a feature and sometimes things work better when you take it back off. And so whether it's the visual lookup and people are turning it off, or that new camera capture button because it actually is kind of hard to use, and switching between the lenses and zooming and stuff is not all as fluid as it could be, especially with the case. Well, here, if it's draining your battery and stuff, it's kind of the same thing. Like, you end up having a better experience without the new feature, which kind of goes along the lines of people have been wondering, like, has Apple tapped out in terms of innovation across several different products, but with the iPhone in particular? Like, are they just kind of grasping at straws, adding in stuff, especially if it could work better at this point? I don't know. Definitely let me know your thoughts, though. I'm curious if this has affected you or not. Let's talk a little bit about voice dictation on iOS devices. I saw a post the other day, I'll put it up in just a second, where somebody who I really respect for their writing and just some of their podcast content, just creation stuff in general, was talking about how they like to use voice dictation, but Apple's dictation tools aren't all that good. They have room to grow. They need to catch up to other things. But he recommended a different tool. So I kind of want to talk about this whole subject, show off that tool a little bit. The tool that he recommended, let's just get right to the good stuff, is called Whisper Flow, but it's spelled W-I-S-P-R, I believe, Flow. It's in some ways very just like, the AI app that you would expect, right? But a few cool things I like about it is that it can help pick up what you're saying without typos. So like, it knows if you changed your mind when you started talking, and it can reformat things and say it properly with the right punctuation and stuff. Also, it does have a whispering mode. So like, if you're around a bunch of people and you need to talk a little bit quieter, it can still do a good job detecting and picking stuff up. Also, it can integrate with several other services. Now, it has a focus on writing. That makes sense why this person, I'll show you in a second, is recommending it. And the big deal here is, if you're typing stuff out, or even if you're writing by hand, it's slow. But if you're speaking, it's just naturally faster. So like up to 220 words per minute. So just to cap off the features, auto edits, it's context aware. It can sound like you, in terms of your tone, your voice, so to speak, and it can improve your writing a little bit. There's the pricing for you, so you can try it out for free. That's part of why I wanted to cover it. I'm personally pretty excited about this because I use my voice to write all over the place as much as I can. I don't do a lot of typing anymore unless I have to, and usually more on the iPhone really than the Mac. If I'm at the Mac, I like to just dictate stuff, and oftentimes I'll just have AI kind of take that chunk of text and transcribe it, and then I'll do whatever I want to do with it. Every now and then I do some actual manual typing, but I've just realized, like, over the last year, hardly at all, honestly, for actual stuff that I'm trying to produce or work on, because there's something about me, my brain just works better when I'm laying it out like I am right now, just talking. So whether that's interacting with a voice mode with AI, or whether that is doing something like this, where I just will dictate what I actually want to say, and I can slow things down and sort of like parse through it, like if I'm actually trying to write something. But oftentimes I'll just do like a brain dump. And sometimes when I'm getting ready in the morning or whatever, just got it going, and I'll kind of get my thoughts out that way. So I'm just using it for everything. I use it for emails when I'm typing stuff. But let's look at David's post here real quick. His name's David Perel. Definitely worth checking out and giving a follow. But he's like, history is going to remember all the typing we do on our phones as a strange anomaly. Speaking is a much more natural thing than typing. So to him, he's saying voice dictation hasn't caught on because Apple's so far behind. Siri still stinks, constantly makes mistakes. Apple's going to eventually catch up. If you use cutting edge voice dictation tools, it's easy to see we're on the precipice of major change. And then he recommended WhisperSync. But there's another one, Aqua. It's quote unquote dictation that understands. There's several of these out there that you can actually check out. I'll tell you the reason why I'm all about this, okay? I think it really boils down to speed, because I'm the sort of person who likes to listen to audiobooks and podcasts and stuff at 2x speed. So that's what the podcasts are set on, for instance. We get in to the car with the family and it's still on that setting, and we start listening to something and it sounds normal to me, and everyone's like, can you like put it on normal? Because I'm just used to that. And I think I kind of think like that at that speed in my head also. So it makes sense if I'm trying to communicate something for me to go faster at the speed of thought, at the speed of speaking, rather than having to slow down for basically catching up with my fingers. I do feel like, though, once again, and I feel like I've been a little extra harsh on Apple stuff here lately. So I don't want it to feel like, oh, Chris is super negative at Apple. But like I said recently in the last clip, I believe, if Apple could improve in some situation, it's in our best interest to tell Apple, like, can you please improve this, because we want our Apple devices to work as good as possible. That's like just common sense. So, I mean, I have found out that when there's an app that offers some sort of voice mode, I like to default to using their system because it does seem to work better than Apple's built-in dictation. So I fall back to Apple's built-in dictation. If I have to use it, then I'll use it because it's going to get the punctuation wrong. It's not going to understand everything correctly. One of the best things about Whisperflow is that it understands names and stuff. It will nail the names that Siri is never going to understand, that Apple's never going to get right. This service called Zapier, you might have heard of them. They're kind of like IFTTT, if this then that. They did a survey and only like 34% of people, according to them, were satisfied with the way dictation works for iOS, for instance. So that's what I'm saying. Lots of room for improvement. And if you're looking to get into this and hit your stride a little bit more, find a workflow that works better for you, I would say check this out. I mean, there's a free mode. So let me know though, do you dictate a lot of stuff? Do you not? If so, why? If not, why? I'm always curious in other people's workflows because I learn a lot from you guys. You know, a lot of people are like, oh, Chris is here. Mostly I'm here on this channel learning rather than teaching, I feel like. I like to have this conversation. So let me know. Imagine a device that listens to your thoughts to boost your productivity. Is that the future? Is it a gimmick? Is it weird? Omi is an AI-powered wearable device that aims to remember your conversations, to answer questions, and assist in organizing your daily tasks. It's literally a wearable. You're meant to wear it on your head using medical tape, and it's supposed to read your mind, read your thoughts. Now, you can wear it as a necklace as well, if you'd rather do that. And we're gonna break this down and talk all about it. I never know who's sitting in front of me, right, on the camera, because I know people who are all about this and they can't wait to get their hands on it. And I'm not saying like this device in particular, although that's what we're talking about right now, but this kind of device, like this sort of technology, some people just love it. They eat it up. They can't get enough. And basically they want to merge with machines. It's called transhumanism, and they can't wait to have AI like embedded in their brain using something like Neuralink, or to just use something like this, where it's kind of like this symbiotic relationship. But then on the other hand, I know plenty of people who are like, this is creepy, it's weird. Not only is it weird for the person wearing it, but it would be weird to me if somebody around me was wearing it. Same thing with like, you know, the AR glasses with the cameras aimed everywhere and the mics everywhere. It just feels like an invasion of privacy, especially if it can like understand what people are thinking and stuff. It freaks people out. Now, there's a reason why this company is making this wearable and why it attaches to your temple like this, using medical tape, if that's what you want to do. I mean, for them, this is much less invasive for you as the person who wants to use it than getting something like a Neuralink implant inside your actual head. And I would add too, there's tons of people who are like, look, this seems like vaporware. It doesn't seem like a real thing. It seems half-baked. You know, we're gonna just forget about this in a week or two or a month or two, certainly in a year, because it's just like, it was an announcement. It's never gonna actually turn into something actual or useful. I will say this though, you gotta say, if you could nail privacy and if you could nail, you know, making other people comfortable with it, if you could ever live in whatever world that would look like, the idea of having this quote unquote personal assistant that's kind of like the Star Trek computer or whatever. I haven't watched Star Trek in years, but still I remember that. People would talk to it, new stuff. It would be interesting. It would certainly be useful, especially if it was somehow private. We talked about this NVIDIA computer that's sort of like the size of a Mac Mini that's super powerful. You could chain a couple of those together and run a 400 billion parameter a local AI in your house or at your office or whatever, and not have to rely on, you know, OpenAI or Claude or Google or anything. It would be like your own AI. Well, if you had access to something like that, but it was in a form factor like this or similar to this or something, then I mean, I almost do kind of understand the underlying appeal, but I think I more understand the underlying weirdness that people sort of react with. It's like you can say that this thing's not going to listen to other people, like it just is tuned to work with so-and-so's voice or whatever, and maybe you could even make it compliant with this or that regulation. But it's kind of like that meme where, you know, someone's like talking to their Google smart speaker and it says something like, I can't respond because you need to enable the microphone. Well, obviously it was listening anyways. Like, you know, you can turn off these microphones, but it doesn't mean that the access actually disappears. So really, the thing that I keep touching on when it comes to AI stuff in the future is like trust. Do you trust X, Y, or Z component in the chain, the company, the government. There's a trust component there and the people that you're around for sure, and what they're adopting into their life. That's a big discussion. What's really funny, I think, is that you see a ton of people who are like, why do we need this or something like this? Because we basically have a phone that's small enough that it's with you all the time, or even like a smartwatch. Like, we don't really need an extra thing to carry around to do this, which is a good point. It seems like almost every month or two, you have some new camera company or AI company that's made a dedicated device that fits in your pocket, and it's like, hello, I have a smartphone right here that's clunkier and chunkier. I don't have room to store two things plus my keys. Like, why would you even make that? And I don't know if this sort of falls into that category or not. It's interesting that it integrates with all these different apps. Not 100% sure how that works. So that's kind of the productivity angle I think that they're pushing. I think what could be sort of an overlooked aspect of this is specialization in certain industries like healthcare, for instance. That could be a place where something drops in like this and it prevents medical mistakes from happening, or it's sort of like a second opinion where somebody is having a conversation with a patient or something, and the AI picks up on something that the doctor doesn't or whatever. Now we're kind of back to why even have the doctor then in the first place. The new world with AI is so crazy. That is 100% why I've made this course, AI and I, which you can get for 99 bucks right now. It's still in pre-order for like one more week while I just put the finishing touches on. Just yesterday on the show, we were kind of talking about Apple's lawsuit with Siri and how that sort of dinged a lot of people's trust in Apple, who had always made privacy, in the last decade at least, a super fundamental, foundational part of their brand. And then to do this payout of almost $100 million, is that admitting something? Is it just getting off the back? It doesn't matter. Like, there's not a lot of trust if you can't even trust, these companies that have made privacy the bedrock of their thing. If there's even any doubt there, you have to have 110% trust in something like this to actually want to use it for it to do well in the market, I feel like. Unless that's not true, because how much is our privacy invaded right now? So many people just use free products like Gmail for how long? And if it's free, you are the product, right? Your data is being harvested, sold, used, or being used against you, for marketing purposes. And these companies know more about us than we know about ourselves. Is that good? Probably not. So would you be one of these people who are saying things like, it improves my memory, my ideas, and more, or my AI clone helps me with everything, it's absolutely the best buy of 2024? Or are you a big, nah, that's okay, I'm gonna pass? Elon Musk just gave an interview where he talked about how thousands of Optimus bots this year are going to roll out to Tesla factories. And if things go well, they're going to ramp those up to 50 to 100,000 bots next year, and then scale that 10 times to about 500,000 bots the following year. We're talking about 2027. Optimus is a humanoid robot from Tesla, and there's so many humanoid robots coming out of the woodworks from companies all over the place, from China to the US and many countries in between. It really does feel like we're on the verge of a robot revolution. I don't think people really understand this. You've kind of heard about robots in the movies, or, you've like imagined it. It's been a thing, back in the 50s, there's all these little TV shows or whatever, but it's here now. Like, in the next couple of years, there are going to be more and more robots just walking, rolling, jumping, slithering all over the place in places you previously would never expect to see them. They're going to, I don't want to say invade, because I'm not trying to make a judgment about if it's good or bad, but they're going to be all over in workspaces. They're going to just automate a lot of society. And this is an important interview by Musk here, because it rolls out his plan for getting Tesla bots, Optimus, into his own factories to kind of do a test there and then scale that up. Here's the thing. If he puts those in Tesla factories at scale and it makes for efficiencies, you got to keep in mind, robots don't have to go to sleep. Maybe they can work for like 3 shifts, versus what a human has to do, doesn't have to eat. It's going to completely change the world. And so when we talk about AI, we think about like ChatGPT or something, embodied AI, where it's living in a robot body, basically. And living, I use that very loosely, or not at all, actually. It's just going to mean that anything that a human can do, these humanoid robots will likely be able to do in terms of like tasks, like mowing the lawn, like walking a dog, like going shopping, for instance. And I don't know if you caught the NVIDIA keynote at CES, but he really spent some time talking about humanoid robots and how it was going to be such a big deal. So many things still have to get figured out, things like efficiency, safety, what's it going to do to different jobs. And I just want to be really clear. I think there's a ton of hurdles for robots to make their way out of, not just in a factory setting, but out into society to really put a dent in a lot of the work that humans actually do right now. But it doesn't matter if it's tomorrow or in 2 decades. Like, this is coming, right? It's coming, and now's the time to really get prepared for it. There's a case here where you might like it. Elon's always talking about you could have your own personal C3PO, right? And I kind of cringe at that because I don't want people to over anthropomorphize AI. AI is not like a human. It's meant to simulate a lot of human behavior, but I don't want somebody to think that, oh, if I'm lonely, I'm going to have this robot to hang out with, right? That's a sad world, I think. Right now, you got like robot lawnmowers, right? But if you had a humanoid that could do a lot of the tasks around your house, not just dedicated robots, like one dedicated to being a robot vacuum, one dedicated to being a lawnmower robot, but one that can literally go do all the stuff that you could do that are your chores. Like, I can see how that would appeal to people, especially if it's like 20 to 30,000. You can kind of lease it like you do a car. What's the point of a human in the future? I feel like now is the time to really contemplate this stuff, think about it. I hate to keep bringing it up, but part of the reason I'm interested in these stories is because I have been spending so much time thinking about robots and AI and what it means to be a human in the future. Where's the significance? Where's the contribution? Of course, you've heard me mention, like, I'm helping people map out what the potential opportunities are going to be, what's the next wave they can catch and surf, and what the threats might be, and how to be adaptable, how to prepare no matter what the situation is. That is all part of it. I think one of the big things is going to be just like what matters anymore. You look at the humanoid robots and then you realize there's people out there who basically want to replace humanity. They're all about transhumanism and eventually post-humanism. So if you're overwhelmed or if you're like worried, you can go pre-order the course. It's coming out in like a week and I'll help you sort through all of that and be prepared. But I'm just saying this is how it starts though. This specifically, and maybe Optimus and Tesla specifically, is how this explosion in robots really kicks off in a big way. There's a ton of companies out there. We've talked about already on this second channel here, Figure, and how they've been working with BMW to stick some robots in some situations like in the factory as well. But it's going to spread, and it's going to spread quicker than you realize. I would just say the time to get prepared is probably now. It was probably like yesterday, but now's a good time to prepare as well. So if you have some specific questions, let me know. I'll try to cover some more of this outside of the core material on the course, just here on the channel. So drop your comments, questions, concerns, and then let me know. Are you going to buy an Optimus bot if you could get your hands on one? Does it appeal or not? Does it worry you? Are you cool with it? Can you not wait to see robots walking all over the place? All right, that's it for today's show. I feel like this is kind of fun. If you're new and you haven't really caught up, it is sort of an informal kind of chit chat sort of a show. And we are doing some clips where people can just, if they don't want to sit through the whole thing, kind of tune in and get just what they want. But I do want this to be more interactive than it is. I'm getting so much feedback already. I don't know if you caught this from yesterday, but this channel is growing faster in terms of subscribers for sure and a few other metrics than Dailytekk 1, the original, which makes sense because I'm only posting about once a week over there because they're more thought out. But if you have some topics that you want to see covered here, then let me know. Like, drop them down in the comments and we'll actually cover some stuff and have more of a conversation so it's less one-sided. And, sometimes I'll drop down in the comments and respond to people too, but it's not the same, right? So if you want some actual questions answered, it could be about tech, could be about Apple, could be about the future, anything related, then just let me know because I think it would be more fun than just me sitting and talking at the camera. All right, I'll catch you in the next one. Later.